Hey guys, this is Bonfrey from L World. This is a follow-up video to the topic of guilds. I did one a couple days ago talking about some of the mistakes I'd made and also kind of what to look for in guild personality, things like that. But what I also wanted to do was get a little tighter focus on what I look for in a guild, depending on where I'm at on my gameplay. I've had a lot of real life issues, been busy. Sorry, I'm just playing, doing something here on the screen to just play GE4 while I'm talking about this topic because I need to do it, and gives me something to do and for you to look at if you're actually watching the video. But for the last, 7 or 8 months, I haven't been able to play the game as much as I would normally play. So I went with a guild according to that, right? So I knew that I couldn't commit what I would say I'm playing right now is 4 to 6 hours a day over the course of a 24-hour period versus like maybe 30 minutes a day or something. So I think it's important for me at least to have a guild fit that mirrors that level of gameplay, right? And so I hope I'm not at this in like another 10 years from now being like Steven Seagal going, yeah, I've been playing this game for like 35 years. But anyway, it's one of those things where I'm going to put into it what I can right now. If I'm getting out of it what I'm putting in or more, cool. If not, then I'm going to back off, right? So I feel like the guild experience is important to my ebb and flow of attraction to the game or being less interested, things like that. So I can say in the past when there's been guild problems where maybe I've been real committed to a guild for some number of months or maybe even years, and then there's a shakeup of some kind, either in leadership or someone quits the game that was critical, or a number of people faction and leave. It can really kind of change the whole dynamic of things, right? It's kind of like not a lot different than real life in a way, because it's kind of like, even though this game is fantasy, there's real life concepts kind of peppered into guild mindset or group dynamics, things like that. So that and that is one of the other things I want to talk about. I've seen guilds come and go over the years. That sometimes even the names of the guild are based on perhaps what might be seen as core values, right? Like they may have a political slant. They may have maybe more of a Ramses slant versus a Jon Snow slant. In terms of battle mindset or political, like how a guild is run. Like, do they want to mow over guilds that won't get out of their way in GVG and threaten them and world domination, or do they say, hey, maybe we can negotiate and maybe we can, if you help us, we'll help you, that kind of thing. So I think there's something to be said for guild mentality and the reputation that goes with it, and the behavior of the players that are in those guilds. If you've got toxic leadership, just like anywhere else, you're going to probably have toxic guild members. And so that's why I think I like being a part of a guild, not just say one guild, but the guilds that I tend to hang out in. I'm looking for very clear, very organized leadership where everyone's treated the same. I hate it that it snaps back like that every time I go to the next encounter. It's just because I've got my screen zoomed because I run 4K, and it just, it just gets to be too small sometimes. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, so clear, like clear statements about this is what we expect from you. Even to the level of, I love looking at the guild rules, or if you will, or guidelines that have been well documented, where there's just no wiggle room, right? It's like, this is what we expect of everyone. If you don't If you can't be there for this level of gameplay, then take a break or go somewhere else or go to our, sister guild that, where you can play 1 hour a week, a day, or a few hours a week, and that's fine. It's just that in the current guild I'm in, I'm expected to hit GE64 and be checking in by Tuesday to make sure we don't have a race. But I've got to hit GE64 for the most part by Friday, right? After it opens up on Tuesday. That would be like the normal week. I mean, if they're not going to kick you out if if there's not a race and you just have it done by Sunday, but it's got to be 64. But the consequences of that is like, hey, you're out of here. No free passes, even if you are, I don't know, an elite player. So, and I don't say elite from an elitist standpoint, just someone that contributes a lot to the guild, because it is a give and a get, right? I love guilds that are going to allow less experienced players in, but they're going to need they're going to meet minimum guidelines, right? Like our guild probably isn't going to let somebody in that's in EMA because they don't necessarily want to feed the treasury EMA goods to buy camps in GBG, right? There's kind of a bracketing that has to occur with tightly run guilds around how they run their GBG strategy, right? So like in let's talk about GBG for a second. So with GBG, like if you've ever looked at a map and just seen like, every other sector is like either this guild or that guild, there's a lot going on there, right? They're doing sector swaps. There's a lot of coordination involved with that. And frankly, just a lot of effort. So like, for example, our guild has 13 GBG leaders. Okay. And that sounds like a lot, but what that means is it's not as if there are 13 shot callers arguing with each other. It's that, there's different people in different time zones all over the world that are watching those timers and basically, setting up the map so that the players, in our case, the support fighters, can go in and have a very clear definition of, oh, okay, I need to hit this, and we have rules around that, right? If there's a hand in front of it, we take it to 140. If it's a take, we take. Things like that. But that doesn't just automatically happen. We've got to have a lot of people looking, a lot of eyeballs on that screen from a management standpoint during the GBG session, which of course resets every 4 hours, regardless of time zone or where you're at on the globe. So that helps this guild experience for me, because I can go in and know, okay, in this GBG session, I'm going to get thousands of free fights or low cost attrition fights because of that level of gameplay that the other players are putting in for the benefit of the guild and for myself as a player, right? So the tide rises all ships. So that's a huge value to me, right? Like if I want to fight a couple hundred fights, I can do that. But if I want to fight 5,000 fights, I can do that. I will say that I'm getting a little bit weary of the repetitive aspects of this game, where it's just fight next, fight, and it just becomes like clicky central, and I keep wondering if my right hand is going to fall off because of all the repetitive strain. So a lot of times what I'll do is if I'm watching TV or something and it's not that interesting, I'll just sit there on my iPad and knock out a couple hundred fights, just kind of in a blur mode or whatever. But because the guild is maintaining the treasury, they've got people dedicated to that as well, right? Like after either a battleground session or a GVG push, we have different threads where it'll say, okay, we need to we need to balance the treasury. Here's some trades. Right. And so somebody's always watching that. It's not that they're just expecting players to go in and pay attention to the treasury. I mean, I tend to do that because I like to support the overall guild effort, and I'll look at the treasury and say, oh, okay, it looks like we need more whatever, and I'll go and trade down or make deals to get whatever goods the treasury needs in order to maintain it at a high level. If even a smaller guild like I was in, I advised leadership, hey, they could, this guild that I was with before when I was kind of chilling, they would kind of go up, they would graduate up to maybe platinum even in GBG, but then of course get turned around and go back down. And I told them, look, you always have to have at least 25,000 of each era represented by your players, because you're going to need to buy those camps and things like that. And it's kind of sad, in some guilds you got a few people trying really hard and really trying to manage the maps, and whether it's battlegrounds or versus guild, and it's like there's maybe just not that many players, maybe 2 or 3 people taking advantage of those opportunities, like in battlegrounds for free fights and things like that. So that's when you got something that's probably a little bit distorted in terms of leadership effort versus overall guild payoff, right? So I think it's nice to be in a situation guild wise where the harmony and the balance work for you as a player. I also like participating in guilds that have a Discord channel. I like to get on once in a while and talk during, say, a guild versus guild push, like in AA or something like that. I'm not on at reset all the time, so I struggle with really committing to GVG, because you got to be on a browser platform versus mobile, and there's a lot of other things go along with that. So those are those thoughts. I like also for the guilds I'm in to have a good amount of an array of threads, right, for leveling GBs quickly, right? So the fact that the guild I'm in now has a lot of active players who are very actively leveling their great buildings. I think yesterday, just throughout the day, at any point in the day, I could, I was leveling up my SBC, because since it's, SBCs are so hot right now because of the Inno's latest tweak on the game. I hate to be a joiner in terms of this building in particular, and I've railed against some of these rather contemporary changes. It's kind of like maybe sits around and scratches their head and goes, well, what can we thing can we bring forward now into the limelight that we've crapped on for the last 5 years because we didn't pay any attention to it, and now that every player has sold their ritual flames off in the AD, here we are needing to get more of those. So this is funny. I actually deleted my Hagia, which was here earlier this week, because I was like, wait a minute. I looked at the Hagia and I'm like, this thing is only producing really FP. Like, I don't need more happiness, for God's sake. I mean, I've got plenty of that. It's an early era great building. I love the way it looks. I love, the concept of the Hagia, but it's like, well, it's, at the level I had it, it was throwing off like 50 FP, and I'm like, I don't really care. So I deleted it and put in these ritual flames, since I actually, for some reason, maybe just out of sheer laziness, held on to about 90 of these things. So it does help city defense. It doesn't help the attacking while defending piece like the TA does. And so now I'm like working on the TA again, because I'm only at level 68. I just hate how expensive the TA is to level up, but it is what it is. Like, just part of the game. So all right, that was a little bit of a tangent. So threads and leveling. So what I liked was that yesterday, just throughout the day I was working, but I would dip into the game, and there would be like, enough people on that I could prime my building and say, Bond SBC, 321 on the 192 thread, and it's quick, right? Like, one of the things that's really important to me in a guild is that I don't have to copy and paste the math. I hate that. Like, if you can't do math, then, I guess you need to be in a guild where everybody posts like the actual amount of FP. Now, in our guild, it's optional. So like here, somebody says, okay, TA position 4, I want 134 FP. Well, my arc is at like 195 something, right? So I don't care. Like, I don't really do the math on the 192. Like, I just put my break even down. So this player is going to get a little bit more than 134, right? In this case, on a 192. So here, this is more like the way I would put my buildings in, because I like to move quick. I want to flip it, and I don't want to have to like go and copy and paste the math for the players, right? So this format of leveling in a thread is very efficient, and I think it works great. Now, in the case of, say, a 185 thread or a 190 thread, so I'm in some of those threads outside of my guild with people that I've met that are maybe lower in the game, and then I will do the math, because I'm, in a sense, I'm investing in their GBs on a lower thread that, non-guild, where in a sense it's like a snipe, but they're getting what they want and I'm making some return on it, which is just using, my arc as a bank, which makes a lot of sense. So again, guild behavior. When I'm in the guild, I'm very, I try to be generous. When I'm out of the guild, I'm not as generous, right? So our guild doesn't have a 190. We just have a 192, and then we have a break even 1 through 3 for military and treasury benefit building. So that's that's great. And then I'm in a 2.0 thread with some other friends in the game that have that's been around a long time. My arc doesn't throw off 2.0, but I don't really care, because I'm getting the benefit of 2.0 as well, right? So if someone posts their GB there, it's for positions 3, 2, and 1, and I'll pay out 2.0 a lot, and it's just a kind of honor system, right? Like, in terms of like how many times it's not like I'm a tit for tat where I'm like, oh well, I put 2.0 on someone's GB, and now I'm expecting them to do it every time or whatever. My arc's at 151, so I'm at 97.1 return. So paying out 2.9% extra is not that big a deal, especially when I'm getting it back, right? So when I throw down my arc for the next level, or my AO that's at level 118, I'm going to benefit greatly from that. So it's kind of a win-win. So anyway, that's an aside from, that's outside of guild stuff. I think some guilds maybe do have 2.0 threads just internally. And that's another thing, that I just thought of. There could be threads, like, say, like I just joined DC after being gone for like a year and a half. Well, the guild is completely different than when I left, and that's fine, but I still like the overall personality of it. I like the clarity of leadership. I like that many players that were there before are still there, other than the ones that unfortunately have passed away in real life or have quit the game. That's one of the oddball things about playing a game over a series of years or more, decades. But there could be threads that you don't know about, right? That maybe were established at one point. You might ask, say, hey, do we have a 2.0 thread that I just don't know about because I'm not in it? Or do we have a 195 or whatever? Is there an unfair trade thread, that helps the guild, or a treasury support thread, whatever it is, because obviously you're going to have your guild, your default guild threads, but there can be optional ones too. So that's something to be looking out for. I've also created threads in some guilds where I've thrown out there, say, hey, I see, like some of you, like I'm into collecting, bourbon, or, I'm into like laser cutting or whatever. So or laser engraving. So if I find out someone, has that affinity and there's enough people in it, then we'll start a side thread for, hey, what are you drinking today, or whatever. So, that can be fun too, because I've actually made several friends in real life from this game, through Discord and just getting to know people a little bit, and actually, met them in real life for lunch or whatever, or been to multiple states and connected with these people. So that's been kind of fun. And let's see. So now I'm digressing again. So we talked about, oh yeah, and then back to GBG for a minute. I mentioned we had 13 leaders. That comes and goes. It's not like they're always, on. Usually for a session, they will appoint. I think they'll just decide among themselves, like some kind of order of things, like how, like, okay, we're going to have, 2 or 3 people handling the shot calling for this session, right? That way people don't get worn out. I think that's really important, is to have enough interested parties in the guild so that there's a clean rotation that doesn't burn people out, because I think this game especially lends itself to burnout, because I think maybe just depending on your personality, like I have a somewhat addictive personality, and so I just just get in and dive in and just keep going, and then realize, oh my god, like I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. This just seems so repetitive and stupid. And then so that's when I know, okay, like I just need to totally back off and then give it some time. So when there's a lot of leadership to pull from, a deep well, a deep bench to, that helps a lot in overall people not freaking out and, just going off the reservation. So back to GBG, we do signups, and we do like, hey, let's all be on. There's going to be a race. And so they'll say, race at this time in the GBG thread, and then signups, and then they'll just, like, the leader will just put like empty slots, like 1 through 10, and then we'll just go in and say, okay, I'm in, and then we just keep adding to the thread, so they can get a sense. So everyone has a sense in public eye of what if that's going to go well, right? Like nobody wants to show up for a sector race where you're going to be burning attrition like crazy, and then nobody shows up. And that's another thing. One of the things that has blown up guild experiences for me in the past was when they would have race signups, and then a number of people would show up, but then you'd have the ones that never show up for races, like ever. But when the fights are free, like they're all over it, and you're looking at the overall statistics going, well, person, the joiner who always shows up and takes the hits has 3,000 fights this session, and the one who never shows up and takes any attrition also has that many fights. Like, this is intentional. There's something going on here. So that can also breed discontent, right? So it's not as if you want to be looking for discontent, but when it finds you and it finds your guild, it can be very ugly and very, and I'm sure some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, again, this particular show or video or segment is intended for those that perhaps are, wanting to be tied up in a high level of gameplay, right? A frequent level of gameplay. I would say this game lends to frequency as opposed to, like, being a know-it-all. It's like you just need to show up and then you kind of figure it out. And we can have, we can comment and talk about nuances, right? Like the fact that my city is kind of looks like dog shit right now because I haven't taken the time to really optimize it. So I've been kind of going through it, little bits and pieces, and tearing things out and adding some, going into my inventory, going like, I need to decide, what's the lesser of the evils. Like I don't put out Fountains of Youth anymore. I haven't for years. So like I'll just sell that off right away, unless Anno finds a way to like make wishing wells amazing or something. Then I'm screwed. But I'll go through here and be like, okay, I've got 3 abandoned asylums in inventory, or whatever, blimps, or more sleigh builders, or whatever it might be. And, at one point, these buildings were something that I spent real money trying to get. I tried to, I did strive for events, and, Governor's Mansion, or Governor's Villa, I got 2 of those in stock. But, I don't have room for them, and that's one of the ongoing challenges of this game, right? So, I made some changes here, but I would really recommend once in a while just going into the city, the builder editor thing, and just stripping everything off and really looking at road efficiency. Like, I have some friends in the game that are so into the road optimization that, you know, they've got it figured out down to like where they only have like, you know, 2% waste of their city space on roads or whatever it is. So you can really nerd out on things like that, on those ratios, and I think that's great. You know, like I would encourage it. You know, I've even, in my case, been ripping out some of these, not really bot rots, but like other little buffer ones, like these guard posts. I mean, 2% attack. All right. You know, not nearly as efficient as a sentinel outpost, right? You know, 1x1 at 4%. This is, you know, like 3 times more efficient than a, you know, guard post. So looking for efficiency, even if it costs me a little bit of a percentage, because you know, I'm out of space. So anyway, I'll be working on that. But anyway, that, I think that's what I have for today. I'm not going to drone on much more. Hopefully you picked up some things from the video that you like, and if you do, be sure to subscribe and ask questions, comments, whatever, and I'll see you at the next one. Cheers.